October 2006. Be it resolved pursuant to Section 66, 1003-4, Wisconsin Stats, since the public interest requires it, the following portion of Myrtle Street in the city of Hudson, Wisconsin, be and the same hereby vacated and discontinued. All that part of Myrtle Street line west of First Street as described, the north 18 feet of the east 140 feet of Myrtle Street line west of First Street and south 18 feet of the east 150th to Myrtle Street line west of First Street, City of Hudson, St. Croix County. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to address this particular subject?
Well, the two adjoining landowners and myself are present. I think it's been through numerous committees and considerations. And
I was thinking of anybody other than
okay.
that might want to speak on this subject. Anyone? Okay. I think that we know what's happening. Okay. If there isn't any comments, I'd look for a motion to
move to adjourn.
Adjourn the hearing.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. You got about three minutes or so. If anybody can figure out that description I read, they're better than I am.
Here.
Hearing none, let's go to the consent agenda items and
Cruz, St. Paul, Minnesota. To approve the quarterly write-offs for the St. Croix EMS in the amount of $24,095.61 as recommended by LifeQuest following Phase 3 of their collection procedures. To place on file the quarterly report of the Police Department and the St. Croix EMS Commission minutes of November 13th, 2006. That is all.
what is your pleasure on the consent?
Move for approval.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Morissette?
Yes.
O'Malley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Rademacher?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Let's go to Finance Committee. Number 4, consider budget adjustment to reflect the Police Department's share of the EMS rescue boat. And in 2006, the EMS purchased a boat for rescue services. The police were to participate in one half of the cost. We initially thought that the police would pay for this over a 5-year period. However, due to savings in the personnel costs of the police budget, funds are available in 2006 to pay for the EMS, for the police share of the cost, and recommendation for finance is to do just that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to 6, consider the transfer of the unused part-time community development wages to capital outlay for consulting services for downtown development architectural standards. Recommendation from finance is to do that, but I'd like to have Denny for the council and the TV audience give us a short summary.
Transfer of funds. We'll be hiring the part-time employee next year, but that's budgeted for. In 2006, we had some unused funds that were, again, not used in this year's budget, and I was searching for ways of funding the downtown planning consulting services. I have applied to Xcel Energy for a $10,000 grant, or I applied $15,000. It looks like they'll be giving us $10,000. Also using comprehensive plan funds, and then also this transfer of funds to the comprehensive plan fund account. which will accommodate the projected $47,000 of consulting services that we'll be discussing later in the meeting. If those funds, if that contract is not approved, that money goes in the comprehensive planning funds, and we'd be using it later for the general comprehensive plan. Also, I would hope to utilize chargebacks to developers to help pay for consulting fees, similar to what we do with engineering firms and so forth, to help recoup this fund. So those are the various ways, but this is one way of available funds in my department to help pay for that particular consulting service.
I'll move for approval.
Can we make that, I'll second that if we can make it contingent upon approval later in the meeting of those consulting fees.
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, the only,
Okay with you?
So amended.
Okay.
the only consideration is, when you think about it, if we can transfer it all over to the comprehensive plan funds, we'll be using those either in the consulting services or our other comprehensive plan.
Whether you
So we could utilize those funds in the comprehensive plan program, because we have taken some of that money out of that for the $17,000 for the survey.
That's
So
right.
we have depleted that fund some, so it'd be nice to be able to replenish it out of this unused fund account.
Well, then I'll remove my caveat. And let's go with
Let's
your
start
original
over.
motion.
Is that okay with the seconder?
Yeah, I'll move for approval on the $10,000.
And I'll renew my second.
Okay. We've had the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to 7. Consider issuance of $241,500 GO promissory notes as short-term debt for capital outlay, resolution number 1506. Recommendation from Finance. We had 2 bids. One was from Citizens Bank at 4.80. The other one was from First National at 4.25. Recommendation from Finance is to go with First National at 4.25. And you may add to anything you want.
No, I was just here for questions.
I'll move that we take the bid from First National Bank for 4.25%.
Okay. Second. Now, we want to go to resolution 1506 when we have to
Suspend the rules.
suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Vote on that.
All in favor?
Isn't that a
Of
roll
that?
call vote? Excuse me, which one are we voting on this
We're
time?
voting on the recommendation to go to the First National Bank at
Okay.
4.25, okay? I don't think we need a roll
No.
call for that.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Now,
Move to suspend the rules.
for a second? Second.
Do we have to do this to get the funding for the 2007?
The loan is for January 2nd. It's only to process the paperwork at this point. There's no rush at this point to do the paperwork. I could prepare it all if you want us to,
Well,
wait.
let's act on the
Motion.
on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
3-1. Okay?
It failed.
It is?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It failed?
We don't have,
Now
we
you
need
need a
4 people to
two-thirds
vote yes,
vote.
we've only got 4 people.
So why don't, someone want to do a first reading then on the resolution?
Motion
so
for
that you
first
can
reading.
do it by the next
Yep.
meeting?
Move for first reading tonight,
Second. Did we get a second? I'm sorry.
Randy.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Let's go to unfinished business, update on projects. Angela?
As you can tell from the report, there's not a whole lot going on. Mostly, we've just finalized out a few projects as cleanup, and the retaining wall at the Lakefront Park has begun. So they're slowly moving on that, so you'll see that going up. Other than that, it's starting to get quiet.
Well, we're preparing for Christmas,
I know.
That's sort of thing.
Good thing.
Thank you. New business resolution 1406. Madam Counselor, you
Oh.
have something to say about that?
Yeah, we had the public hearing, but we still need to do a list pendant, so we'd like to just
Request to
postpone
be
that.
carried over, please.
Carried over?
And just, there is one correction on the resolution. It should be 1003. There's an extra 0 in there.
Many
Just so we
zeros?
can correct that also.
I like that one that's in my check.
Be nice.
Okay, let's go to B, consider
So it's
amending
carried
joint
over. Okay.
library agreement with changes to item 12 duration. Mr. O'Connor will give us an executive summary. Jim?
Well, we have two things. First is the agenda item of the amended joint library agreement, which basically reverts to the one-year withdrawal provisions for all members. This was at the request of the town of Hudson, and since the 2-year provision in the present agreement made them uneasy, we are willing to accommodate their interests on this matter, and I think it's self-explanatory what you have in front of you, but answer any questions you might have.
Will there be a
Go
different,
ahead.
I'm sorry, will there be a different agreement if there is a new library, or when there's a new library built?
Yes, the present agreement does not allow us to acquire land or buildings, so that when we're to that stage, when we have a parcel of land identified and are working on acquiring it and a subsequent building program, that will require a supplemental agreement of some type. And the terms will be dictated by what the circumstances are at that time.
Need a motion for that.
Move to approve the revision or amendment to Article 12, Item 12 of the joint library agreement.
Second. Any further discussion or questions with Jim? Carl, did you have one? I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
If you want to sign that tonight, I will take it to North Hudson tomorrow night and to the towns on Thursday, so I can take that with me if
Okay,
That,
I'll sign it.
it's your plans.
Do you have that?
No, that's talking
No,
about,
I don't have it.
the whole agreement, but it's just
Do
those
we have
ones.
something we could give Jim before the end of the...
I have the form here.
Well, we've got it. We've got an original somewhere, I'm sure.
It's probably back in the office then.
You want to get it, and I'll sign it, and then you can take it.
Okay, thank you. In the meantime, I'd like to briefly call your attention to the overview I've passed out to bring you up to date on where the library is. 4 main points here is that there's a big demand for library services. Circulation has doubled in just the past 6 years. There's every day 930 books go out that library door. Next year it'll be over 1,000. So that's remarkable, the use that the public is making of the library. Also, so we're very efficient there with far below average costs and much more circulation per employee than the state averages call for, which leads to, it's dear to everybody's heart, very low taxes. Our per capita support of the library is less than half of state averages. So we want to be efficient. There's certainly a lot of room to consider improvement in the future. And lastly, the result of all this efficiency is that our public, our patrons, are being underserved by insufficient space, insufficient books, and a very limited staff. So there's a lot of demand for library services. We're running it very efficiently. We kept the taxes low, but we hope to be able to improve in the future.
Thank you for that, Jim. And
Thank you for your time.
please tell the library staff we appreciate their service and approach and results.
I'll pass that on to them at our meeting next week.
Okay. Let's go to C, consulting service proposal by Putnam Planning and Design regarding downtown development, architectural standards, community development director, and I see Mr. Putnam is here as well.
You should have received copies of the proposed, the proposal provided to the City of Hudson by Putnam Planning and Design. This is to establish guideline standards and policies for development in the downtown area. To keep cost within a reasonable allowance, we've asked Putnam's to concentrate on a 4-block area from Buckeye Street to Walnut Street, north and south, and from First Street to Second Street, which is the primary redevelopment area of downtown Hudson. The proposal will provide for computer analysis of the area so that we can insert alternatives into that area to see what the various alternatives that will be derived and recommendations to the Planning Commission, what impact those have on that particular area. Also, the Putnam Planning and Design is well-versed in design guidelines primarily for the public sector, but I think generally the overall standard of design guidelines apply where it's private development or the public development. The proposal is for $46,120. I have applied to XL Energy for a grant for $15,000. It's been indicated to me that they probably will grant that for an amount of $10,000. Also, we had a transfer of funds contingent on contract, and this proposal, not contingent, but to transfer into our comprehensive plan, and then we take monies out of the comprehensive plan program to fund this particular. We will be looking at alternative funding mechanisms, chargebacks to private developments that may benefit from the work that's being done in the downtown area with this consulting service to recoup those funds. Mr. Mark Putnam from Putnam Planning and Design is here tonight to answer any particular questions in regards to this. The thing that I feel comfortable about is that they are willing to put their full staff onto this project. We want to have, they pretty much assured me that the recommendations will be before the Planning Commission by the end of January, so we can, take a close look at those recommendations, hopefully get them into a public hearing consideration, and act on those before the moratorium is up in the first part of March. I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Mark Putnam.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for affording us some time this evening. I have, as you know, worn some paper out over the last few weeks, refining a proposal and attempting to do the best job I can for what is a near and dear hometown. I have a couple, 2-3 displays that were part of the attachments, somewhat larger. I'll just put them up and speak to them for just a moment. Can I speak from here? Does that make the microphone, or do I?
Well,
we have a portable mic here.
portable mic is right here if you want.
It's
no
not there
mic.
this evening, but we could probably move Catherine's over and they'll probably
Yeah.
pick them up.
Could you come to this easel?
Could you put it up there,
We'd
Mark?
be better off, Mark, using,
Okay.
please.
Yeah.
While we move that easel. Oh, we can use it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
There we go.
We'll get you a football helmet.
You win the prize for the tallest exhibit we've ever had.
Working on a tall building.
It's okay, Catherine says you're going to be okay.
Just a liability. Again, my name is Mark Putman. I'm a landscape architect. I have a firm called Putman Planning and Design that's been in town since 1989 or so. We have a staff of architectural, graphic design, landscape architectural, environmental design folks, and we have done work all over the country and specifically in this region. And a fair number of projects in this area, but never the downtown. And but we moved our offices to downtown Hudson because we think it's so special, and it's something we would love to be able to apply our background, experience, and energies to. Here are just some examples of other places where we have done some design work. We've worked in, for instance, downtown Stillwater, looking for a way to position the St. Croix Preparatory Academy in terms of trying to study what the building masses are, how the sight lines and view corridors work, how the future connection of both public and private buildings might work out together, and how that partnership could be worked out. Down in Apple Valley, there's a pretty good sized neighborhood in the making called Cobblestone Lake, and one end of it, everyone has this vision of here, of how do you get something as walkable and as comfortable as Hudson at the end of what really was a gravel pit a long time ago and a lake in the making. So we've studied a number of building masses and building details and how you create senses of place and visual destinations and the like. Those are just a couple ideas. A project locally, or at least in the St. Croix Valley area, that we've been involved with is Liberty on the Lake, and by our research, the most awarded neighborhood in the history of the Twin Cities nationally and locally. Best community and the like. And we wrote the design guidelines for both the residential portion and the commercial portion, and then either had the benefit or the endurance of some, or whatever you call it, to help apply those guidelines with the developer, CPDC, and some other members of the committee that administered them, to both the commercial setting and the institutional setting, which included the school, by the way. That was the first thing built, as well as the shops on the green. And here's a 6-year-old sketch, 7-year-old sketch that we thought might be the bank building, and here's the bank building that got built from it. And here's what one of the convenience facilities was going to use. And my partner in crime, at least one of them, Roger Compton, helped do a sketch that eventually led to that. So you can draw pictures and write guidelines, and with fairness and patience, you can dream it, and it can become something quite unusual and good. We've also done some work in the active downtown, or soon to be very active downtown area of Lake Elmo. And there's a map of about 900 acres or so. And we've worked hard at trying to help that city and its consultants to see the vision of what might be done, what is done elsewhere in other parts of the country that is just enough to captivate you. And those pictures were kind of brought together with some funding and some recommendations for visioning. And in fact, we've been fortunate to work on that application of the guides, even before they become approved guides, for the Lake Elmo Inn, which used to be the old VFW, which now, if you look at a before and an after, it takes some vision if you go over there right now. This isn't there yet, but it will be. And here's an aerial view of that old VFW that could become really part of a central future streetscape. How do those buildings relate? How do you make them walkable? How do you mix uses? How do you provide sightlines and view corridors? So that's here's a, we'll tax this thing one more time. It's good for 2 more boards, maximum. Here is, again, some of we had mentioned some imagery before and after. Denny had said, can we do that kind of thing? Here is that kind of imagery that basically creates a future vision that takes essentially this old building and then adds a few roofs and a few shelters and a few art glass elements to a walkway out to, this is Highway 5 right now. Yeah. By the way, we're using there Highway 35 in downtown Hudson is the vision of how good it could be. So we have a great place to start here. Anyway, that's some of the background that we would use, and I'd be happy to answer any questions with regard to what's in our proposal.
Does the council have any questions? I'd like to have Mark elaborate a little bit on the 8 points that he gave us in this summary for the TV audience and also for the people that are present here in the council chambers, but just giving us a highlight executive summary of those points that you plan to attain. And I just wanted to say I think we're very fortunate to have Mark so closely. Let's say Mark was not here, where would we find a man of this caliber to help us, not only in his objectives that we all have, but his desire to help us as far as Hudson is concerned. And after a couple of meetings with him, we were able to at least put some parameters on our objectives as it related to dollars, and also some objectives as it related to what he was going to attain during this whole summer.
Thank you for those kind words, Mayor. By the way, this is just one notebook of design guidelines that we either researched or have put together for various cities. So we're kind of running with the graphics and imagery and architecture and landscape architecture, as well as the literary or policy side of things. With regard to the proposal, it's sort of a fold-out arrangement that I should show you something here just as a beginning point. Here's downtown Hudson, Buckeye, Commercial Walnut, Locust, Vine, the river. There are, in almost every project, every development, every downtown, what is that word, desperate or separate, unrelated pieces of data that you would like to have all lined up and ideally would turn into a 3D document so you could visualize the whole thing. Up-to-date aerial photos, up-to-date topography, it doesn't exist yet. So the first part of this has to do with project programming management and base data assembly to try to put together the site plan data and the photography data. And I don't know if somebody saw, we jumped the gun a little bit, but before the snow came, we wanted to begin to shoot the photography of the elevations of all the buildings downtown so we can stitch them together and then paste them onto 3D electronic buildings so that we can get an idea of what exists, and then we can start to talk about what happens when you start adding pieces to it. Should you add them this way or that way? Or is there a sight line that you want or not? Are there different ways of positioning buildings to get sight lines or not? And the like. So that's the first section there, 1 and 2, base data, compile and merge base drawing, gather and distill existing information, graphics, maps, aerial photographs, and primarily focus on from Walnut to Buckeye, 1st Street to 2nd Street. Then the next section, which really has to do with trying to build on this pile of alternatives. Denny put together an excellent bit of research in terms of top-notch plans currently done. We attend a number of conferences, NAHB, National Association of Home Builders, Congress for the New Urbanism, Urban Land Institute, all have assemblages of APA, all have really good assemblages of data as to what's the best practices these days on guidelines, and how do you incent as well as regulate? How do you cause investment, more to be made, and still maintain high quality or incent even better high quality downtowns? Anyway, so the next section there, development guidelines, write, illustrate, and compile. Essentially an illustrated, heavy on illustrations, heavy on pictures, heavy on diagrams, illustration of, well, not just the goals, but how you, what's the general way in which you obtain better stuff? And one of the best ways, what's that phrase? If you take from one, that's theft, but if you take from many, that's research. Well, all of this stuff is a lot of research, and we have gathered it from all over the country, and I think we can apply a lot of these photographs and a lot of these principles to that base data that we would assemble in this first part. Focus points, entrances to downtown, how do you handle vehicular circulation? What are the best practices? What's the best alley you can think of? People think of these things and draw pictures and write books about them. We have a lot of those books. Then if we can compile those pictures with written documents, compile a draft, illustrated guidelines that attends to Denny's wish list, the visibility of the river, the relationship of the new development, historic architecture, how does it fit with new architecture? Is there a blending there? How do you do that? We'll attempt to address all of those things, including signage, graphics, lighting, and hopefully put some photographs as well as sketches together. Then, if you have this guide, how then do you provide examples? How do you apply it? And that's this 3D block inventory. Focus area only. First bit of blocks right through here. How do we sample these guidelines and apply them to provide a couple, 2, 3 alternatives for the Planning Commission and the special committee within the Planning Commission and this group and Denny, citizens to go, oh, that's the choice or that's the choice. So that's what 4 is about, 2D and 3D inventory, and then applying, item 5, applying those guides and seeing what it looks like. That I think will solicit a lot of comment and a lot of observation, and then we'll listen some more. We'll listen along the way, and we'll listen loud and clear at that point, and then we'll put all that stuff together into a final form. Now, at the bottom, one of the benefits of computers these days is you can generate so many views. You can even walk through them and fly through them for basically the cost that it took to do one drawing 10, 15 years ago. And we've included that within this first section, but we've also included an extra added item, and I don't know if we can get it funded or not, but I think we can create a 3D model of, even at small scale, so you can kind of get down there and look between buildings and, this is what it's going to look like, or maybe this would be better. So we'll both have this 3D model to try things out on, and we perhaps, if there's funding, can begin to generate these things in actual 3D touch and feel models, so you can say, how does that look? Can we do something different than that? Anyway, that's the short of it.
Very good. You can see why we're fortunate to have Mark. Counselor, on this particular proposal, you wanted us to pass it with contingent?
Yeah, contingent on, we've got some issues in the contract that need to be worked out. Just a couple of things related to public records law, and just clarifying the termination paragraph and use of the project, and most of those Mark and I have talked about, and we're working on language, so I don't see a problem. But there's also a issue I need to check with the insurance company about. He's got a hold harmless clause in the agreement, which I'm not comfortable with, and we just need to talk to the insurance company about that, because they're the ones that would be saying yay or nay on that. And we've talked about that also, so I'm confident we can get something worked out, but it's not there yet.
Any questions from...
If I could just comment on it, with respect to request, if the council would give consideration to this night, that to be contingent on Catherine's final approval of the contract, we would like to start putting them in planning and design as quickly as possible, so we can get through this exercise in the moratorium period.
Well, Denny, I wanted to make sure that the council people, if they had any questions, they could certainly ask Mark at this time. Everybody understand?
Mark, you feel confident that you can complete your tasks in January, for December and January, ready to present to us in February? Okay. Do you need us to suspend rules in order to spend this money?
No, the money you've already transferred, but we'd just like
we transferred a certain amount of money.
And the rest is,
I think
this is 46.
right,
We
the
were
rest of
talking
it,
10
if
before.
you approve this, would come out of comprehensive planning
Correct.
funds.
Okay.
The funding's in place. It's just that there is a...
Does anybody in the audience have a question of Mark? Okay.
Well, I'll move for approval of the of the proposal contingent on the contractual issues that you outlined, Catherine.
Third, second?
I'll second that. We are okay with how doing a first reading on it.
Yeah, the procurement policy allows in situations of time crunches that you proceed without going through quotes or bids, but we wanted to explain everything to you and get your approval on that.
I think we're very lucky, as the mayor pointed out, Mr. Putnam, your work is exquisite. Liberty on the Village is beautiful, and I've seen some of your other work. We're very lucky to have your talents applied to this project.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Mark, thank you for a
Thank you
great
very much.
presentation. Go to the back. Communication recommendations of the mayor. We are going to have a special finance committee meeting Monday, December 11th at 7 p.m. up in the third floor conference room, because that's the day before the school bond vote. And it's regarding the discussion of 2007 proposed capital projects and funding sources. And I had a preliminary meeting with Public Works and on Public Works projects and also parks. And so at that time, we'll give you a summary of our recommendations and get your input so that we, by the time we have the meeting on the 18th, we're all in accord on what approach we should be taking. Is that okay with everyone? Communications items for future agendas. Any alderperson?
I would like a future agenda item. It's a very small housekeeping piece of business, but I feel we do need to do it, dealing with the feeding of wildlife within the city limits. We have a slightly overwritten ordinance right now. We should not be feeding the geese and the ducks in the parks, and that should stay. But the way it is written right now, it also makes illegal every backyard bird feeder in the city of Hudson. And we just simply have to change that.
Anyone else? City attorney?
Nope.
City administrator?
Nope.
That's it?
Move to adjourn.
Motion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. 35. Not bad for an old man.